Okay, hello, my friends. It's been quite a day. When I was looking at the news, I was trying to find, what's the most compelling story, and this is it. Drones have attacked a helicopter, not on the ground. They've done that before, but they attacked a Russian helicopter, and apparently it seems like they may have knocked it down. Okay, so let's talk about this. Ukrainian special forces ambush and destroy Russian Ka-52 helicopter using FPV drones. And there's video to this. I'll show you that. I'll show you the article related to it. By the way, it is Saturday, May 17th. My name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. If you find this interesting, please consider subscribing. I do these daily updates every day. Okay, so let's talk about this. Here it is. Anton Gerashenko, a Ukrainian FPV drone, hit a Russian Ka-52 helicopter. Helicopter's worth about $16 million. There you go. Okay, now we're going to look at this here in this article. Well, let's read this and then we'll look at the article. Unbelievable. The Ukrainian army used a tiny quadcopter FPV drone to shoot down a Ka-52 attack helicopter of the Russian Aerospace Forces. They just released this footage. The pilot of the helicopter lost his life while the gunner ejected and survived. So I'm not sure, like, you know what quadcopters are, and so like little tiny quadcopters. But if you send a number of them, you can actually chase something down. So here's what happened. Ukrainian special forces ambush and destroy Russian Ka-52 helicopter using FPV drones, plural. It wasn't just one drone. There was a number of them all tracking and trying to find this helicopter. The strike took place during daylight hours on May 16th. It's May 17th today as I'm speaking. Throughout, though the exact location on the front line remains undisclosed, they tracked the Ka-52 helicopter's altitude and trajectory in real time. The team launched 7 FPV drones guided by a digital interface showing the helicopter as a red dot encircled by the green indicators of the Ukrainian drones. One of the drones managed to intercept the Russian aircraft mid-flight, resulting in a direct hit and presumed destruction of the helicopter. So I'm not sure what else may have occurred there, but again, that is pretty amazing stuff. Now, think about this. If you're a helicopter, what kind of defense do you have against drones? Like, think about how tiny these little drones are. I mean, can you shoot them, or maybe you can just get away, pull up, go somewhere? Okay, I understand, but the sky is swarming with these drones. So it seems like we're having the same problem defending against drones in the water, right? Like the Navy, the Russian Navy has the same kind of problem when they're trying to defend against these little Magura 5 or Magura 7 drones. It's the same problem. Drones are changing everything, and it's really remarkable. I put this video out yesterday, why Russia cannot prevail. It's Ukraine war. Drones erase Russia's mobility. And the article basically, like, 17,000 tanks, I think it was, off the battlefield. But they can't replace them fast enough, and drones can attack them. So tanks have to come out, shoot, and then hide. I mean, it's just amazing how drone warfare has changed everything. Okay, let's talk about what happened day over day now. 910 Russians off the battlefield. That's low. That's like crazy low, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. 6 tanks, 7 armored fighting vehicles, 34 artillery systems, 96 vehicles and fuel tanks. So the 96 vehicles and fuel tanks, again, that comes back to drones being taken out or helping take that out. 910, let's talk about that number. So I've been tracking this daily since September. So it is May 17th now. So I have quite a bit of data here just day over day as I do these every day. This is the lowest number. I went back. This is the lowest number other than the semi-ceasefire at Easter that they made up like this. Now, it wasn't the Russian ceasefire over the day of the parade, or, the day before and the day after and the day of the parade. It wasn't that day, but the Easter ceasefire, sure. Still, there were 670 casualties that day when it wasn't really a ceasefire, but it kind of slowed. 910 is the lowest other than that one day since September. Okay. Fewest engagements this month and casualties dip below 1,000. Russian relatively few land-based equipment losses, but drone interceptions are well above average. Shelling and MLRS strikes remain above average, but relatively few Russian strikes and Ukrainian strikes as well. That's on Ragnar Gudmundsson's dashboard, which is a really helpful tool. Okay. What happened last night, the drones that were sent from Russia into Ukraine. Now, last night, my last video, I'm trying to remember which video it was. It was, I guess this was my last one, the 3 big stories video. I was talking about, hey, they're already up in the sky, these drones. It looks like there's going to be about 100 of them or so, something like that. It wasn't 100. It turned out only to be 62, but you can't really tell that when it first is off in the air. And there were not missile strikes that I'm aware of, although there were reports that the planes that carry ballistic missiles were starting to get loaded. So don't know what's going to happen with that. We'll find out soon. Okay, in the Sumy region, as a result, so 36 Shahed drones lost and 6 decoys of the 62 that were launched from Kursk and Oriel and Shavtolov. Lovo, and so there were drones, and what we saw yesterday was not a lot of damage from that, but we did see this in Sumy region today, and I can't even show the picture. I'm sure it'll get me banned. A Russian Lancet drone struck a civilian bus, killing 9 people, most of them elderly women. Among the killed was an entire family, a father, mother, and daughter. 7 others were hospitalized with burns, fractures, and concussions. This attack is one of the deadliest since Russian strikes targeting civilians. So that was a Lancet drone targeting a civilian bus. This is what the Russians do. This is why okay, so if you were to say, well, why are you picking on the Russians? I'm not. I'm trying to show you what is, as an honest referee, that's evil. That's a war crime. That's what it is. All right. Okay, multiple explosions reported in Jankoy, occupied Crimea, blasts heard across different parts of the city, heavy outgoing fire, possibly air defense systems in action, according to local reports. So we don't know exactly what happened, but Jankoy is, even that I know how to pronounce this word now tells you that it's been hit before, and there's military targets there in Jankoy. Okay, let's talk about the battlefield. In Pokrovsk direction, Donetsk region, the Russians led 49 assaults. That's a really high number, given that there was only 910 casualties over day. By the way, we're at 972,600. So by mid-June, the projection was June 9th that I showed you yesterday. By mid-June, they'll be to 1 million Russian casualties. It's just, it's piling up, even with this slow by mid-June. Russian forces recently advanced near Toretsk, Pokrovsk, and Novopolivka, and in the Zaporizhia direction. The ISW, the Institute for the Study of War, they consistently assess that Russian President Vladimir Putin will not compromise in peace negotiations unless Ukraine and the West inflict significant battlefield and economic losses on Russia and force Putin to rethink his theory of victory. Putin's going to keep going unless he's forced. He can be forced on the battlefield or economically. For my money, it'll be economically, and the Russians just have to be held off on the battlefield by the Ukrainians while you attack the economy. And this is why sanctions are really important. Here's another part from the ISW. Increased Western, especially U.S. military aid and economic sanctions are necessary to enable Ukraine to inflict significant battlefield losses on Russia and force Putin to either change his theory of victory or make an economically painful and unpopular decision to implement another partial involuntary reserve call-up, which Putin does not want to do because he wants to stay in power and he's afraid of a color revolution of some sort. Okay. This was a terrible article. Ukraine lost 770 million on fake arms contracts, according to the Financial Times. Advance payments were sent to foreign intermediaries, but no weapons were delivered, amounting to a major hit to the $6 to $8 billion annual defense budget. In 2022, some deals involved 120 millimeter mortars from Sudan through middlemen linked to Russia's FSB and Wagner. So they tricked them back in 2022 in some regards. Remember, in 2022, they're just trying to get any ammunition that they can from anywhere because they did not have enough resources. And so they were duped out of $770 million. Is that fraud? Is that corruption or something like that? Okay. So dozens of such contracts are now under investigation, with several Ukrainian officials fired or charged with corruption. So I'm not sure on what level anything was happening, but it was that's bad. That's really bad. And at a time where their survival was really in doubt. Okay. Now this you take with a grain of salt because of the source. Lord Bebo is a site on X or Twitter that is like very pro-Russia. Okay, so look how they frame this, and I'm going to talk about how they frame it and what it actually means. Russian and Ukraine exchanged bodies again. 34 bodies of dead Russian soldiers, 909 bodies of dead Ukrainian soldiers. Now, what are they trying to say? The ratio is about 27 Ukrainians for 1 Russian. Devastating. But is that the ratio of the battlefield? See, that's a thing. Even if this was a true post, which it could be completely made up, there's no citing or sources or anything along these lines, just a picture of a truck. Even if there was a legitimate number that was exchanged, that doesn't tell you anything about what the battlefield ratio actually is. Speaking of that, let's look at this. Minus 149 occupiers per day in their zone of responsibility. When the enemy is active, the ratio of losses reaches 1 Ukrainian to 12 Russians. Okay, that's a little bit misleading from what he actually said. So we're going to look at what he actually said. Okay, so this Ukrainian commander is being interviewed. They're doing a decent job at a good level. Our losses with the enemy are no longer 3 or 5 Russians to 1 Ukrainian. And that's a pretty great ratio if you can get to something like that. And I think that is possible, and there's an explanation for why. But listen to this. Sometimes when the enemy is active, 10 to 1 or 12 to 1. Now, why could that be? That seems more improbable. Like, it's not like you're superhuman, but the Ukrainians are doing certain things in certain ways, and the Russians are doing certain things in certain ways. Meat wave assaults are not the best tactic. Sending guys on motorcycles with lots of drones, probably not a good tactic. A lot of cars, pretty bad tactic, right? Okay, so sometimes 10 to 1. Again, why is that? We have better infantry, better command and control. Okay, I mean, but there's got to be more. Right now, we have the best artillery in the country among infantry brigades. And listen to this, what's coming next. This is objective statistics, not my feelings. And he goes on and says, but the most important thing is that we are on a different technological level. Unmanned aerial systems, ground robotic systems, and control and technological intelligence. Okay, so they're using UAVs, right? I mean, that's what this amounts to, and that is so. If you can spot in the air before you shoot your artillery, you're probably going to have a better shot than just shooting a bunch of stuff because you have lots of artillery to shoot. Okay. While we're talking about that, Ukraine turns Russian Buck SAM system into fireworks with a perfect strike. There's just a still image of the boom. Konstantinivka, Kramatorsk district, Donetsk region. The roads in the city have unfortunately now become deadly dangerous due to Russian drones and fiber optics. Yeah, I mean, so it works both ways. Like they have drones too. I think Ukraine has an edge on that, but remember the Russians have drones too. There is no analog. The Russians talked about they have this weapon that there's no analog to. Well, the no analog target was destroyed. Warriors from the Ryrog unit destroyed a 240 millimeter Tulipan self-propelled heavy mortar, and here's what that looks like and a little image of the drone coming down to find it. And again, drones are just so amazingly powerful on the battlefield. It's like when tanks first emerged on the battlefield and airplanes first emerged on the battlefield. It's like, wow, those are some weapons. Well, here we are with drones. This vampire drone is carrying concertina wire. It's interesting. Okay, so now I was thinking about this the other day. I saw soldiers within concertina wire, and I was thinking, like, how do you lay that with drones up in the air? Well, either that drone, that vampire is delivering it to them, or maybe even stringing it out, right? Could be doing that simultaneously. I mean, either way. Okay, Russian infantrymen came closer to the window to wave to the Ukrainian reconnaissance drone, yet not yet knowing that very soon they would also be met with French AASM hammers. Okay, so this is the kind of thing I was just talking about with that 12-to-1 ratio where, like, what are they doing? They're using drones in order to pinpoint target what it is. So this is the after effect, and this is the before effect where the Russians are up in the window waving at drones. This is a very, very foolish thing to be doing, right? These guys were over here waving at the drones that are, getting the location, sending the coordinates back to the artillery, and it's going to, well, go boom in just a little bit. And so there it is, no more. Yeah. Okay. Now, the U.S. Army, weirdly, has fewer drones than we did 3 years ago. Like, we've got to be learning our lessons from this. With shelving of the Shadow replacement, I hope we can provide something our soldiers can begin to train with soon. Okay, here's the actual article from the Defense News. Army halts tactical UAS competition without a clear plan forward. UAS is unmanned aerial systems as opposed to vehicles, but same kind of stuff. After roughly 7 years, the Army has decided not to continue down its current path to find and procure unmanned aircraft that replaces its now retired Shadow drones for brigade combat teams. And they talk about, like, it's not like we don't want to do it, we just don't have the right systems, but they better get on the stick because this is the future of warfare. Okay, here's a video of a Russian Volka UAV interceptor used to counter UAVs. So see this boom in the air? Well, this is a Russian or a Ukrainian shooting a drone that goes and targets a drone. I mean, it's crazy what is actually happening now. So he's shooting off a drone that, well, I mean, it's like got a kind of a homing device or some sort that he's going to fire off. And then when that goes off into it's going to hit the drone that's up there. It's pretty crazy. You see this stuff evolving in real time right before your eyes. And he's getting close, and let's see. It's almost there. Almost there. Boom. Okay. That's a drone attacking a drone, and pretty amazing. Okay. Norway plans to complete the transfer of F-16 fighters to the armed forces of Ukraine during 2025. So that's F-16s. Ukraine lost an F-16 yesterday or the day before. It happens. I mean, there's going to be attrition. So it's good that they're backfilling some of these. Poland is giving a bunch of MiGs. Was it MiGs or I think it was MiGs to Ukraine as they're pushing those out of their inventory in favor of F-16s. So yeah, this is great. Thank you to Norway. Ukrainian Air Force MiG-29 Fulcrum is just on its way to work. It's a normal day with U.S. supplied GBU-39 SDB glide bombs at the ready. And here, Italy is ramping up support for Ukraine by pulling 400 M113 armored vehicles out of storage, including them in its 11th military aid package. The M113s have been phased out and replaced, and so they're sending them all to Ukraine. So thank you to Italy for that. And then finally, here's a pro tip. It's a life hack. And I thought this is a good metaphor for like the kind of somewhat simplistic way that like the Ukrainians are using these simple technologies like drones in order to take down a helicopter. This is a simple technology. This is a life hack. It's a pro tip for all you men out there. Watch this. So he's putting a balloon on his wife or girlfriend's collar or bag, and then as she walks around a store, easy to find. How about that? Well, I'm just doing a public service video with that. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.